Welcome, everybody. We are going to give it a few minutes. While we're still waiting for more people to join, I thought I would just give sort of a contextual idea of what my assessments of EuroShop are, where they come from, what's the context, right? So I've been a designer in this industry for over 15 years, and I'm a creative director at Classic Exhibits. So we're always thinking about how to create beautiful designs that are going to be more cutting edge on, the front end of trends rather than the back end, and we're looking at ways to do that. Um, Now, you will often see a lot of shapes of structures and patterns and colors kind of come and go and ebb and flow in and out of fashion. Design is very much an evolutionary process. Something, if it's really, really hot one year, it might, fade from the forefront for a few years because people get a little bit tired of it. But then a few years later, it might resurge. It's just very interesting. I'm an art history lover, and so I kind of look at exhibit design as a specific genre of art history. We're looking at how the trends evolve and what's popular one year, how that then shifts and changes, and how the technologies available will shift how we use designs. And also as a designer, something that's really important when I'm starting a new design for a specific client is I'm looking at what are the tools in my toolbox to create the best design for this specific client. And some clients have really great branding guidelines. They have patterns, they have shapes, they have colors, they have, very clear symbols and things that they use that we can then turn into 3D elements and turn it into a really cool interactive design. But sometimes clients don't have those things, right? Or even if they do, maybe a client comes to you and says, I need a new, fresh design. So what we can do now with seeing some of these trends on the front end, with EuroShop being, 1 or 2 or even 3 years ahead of the United States, the trends sort of hit in Europe first. What we can do now is we see these trends emerging and we're able to think forward about how we can apply designs for clients that are going to be more fashion forward. This is what you're attending today, the EuroShop 2023 Design Trend webinar with me, Katina Rigall Zipay, Creative Director from Classic Exhibits. I also wanted to mention that 1 week from today, we will be doing another webinar, myself and along with Matt Lancaster from Conda Exhibits, who was recently at Natural Products Expo West. He's going to be reviewing the trends that he saw at that show, and I'm going to be doing another recap of the trends that I saw at EuroShop. It'll be a little bit more condensed from my end so that we can make room for all the wonderful trends. But that's 1 week from today. You can register even if you're not part of the EBA Northwest chapter. You can still register for this in a week. Now that we are here, we're beginning. We're going to start with materials. So what are the tools in your toolbox? For a lot of the exhibits that we saw at EuroShop, this is just a rough overview on this slide. There's still a lot of natural wood, a lot of greenery, a lot of textures, perforated materials, natural woven fibers. We're going to go through this in a little bit more detail here in the coming slides. What I'm also going to be doing throughout this presentation is looking at some of the themes and trends that I identified from 2020 at EuroShop, and maybe even some from 2014, which was the first EuroShop I ever attended. It's really interesting to see the contrast of materials and structure and shapes and patterns and colors that are prevalent at these different shows. So when it makes sense, I'm going to call out some of those shifts in the evolution of design that I've noticed. All right, so for materials, My first slide here is just highlighting some of the mirrored materials. If you notice in the top left, the Von Hagen design, which was an award winner at EuroShop, has a really long mirrored wall. The whole left side of the booth is a very large mirror. Mirror is a material that I identified in 2020. It's still going strong. It really can expand the feel of a booth, make it really feel really, really big, double the size. You know, it feels like it just keeps going on and on forever. But a mirror metallic texture can be used in a variety of ways. And in the middle, you can see that we have some slats that have mirror texture. This cubed design is from the Designer's Village, and it has a mirrored floor. We saw several counters and fixtures that had this theme going on, where it has a mirror in the back with some LED lighting, and then the mirror reflects on itself, and it looks like it just goes back forever because of the mirror that's in the back of that fixture. Mirror texture on furniture. There's a lot of panels that are provided because there's a lot of vendors at EuroShop that are bringing materials to the market and saying, hey, we have this material. You can use it in your retail space, trade show space, whatever. So just some of the materials with mirror texture are also not just reflective, but also have a texture to them, like this rippled material that you see in the bottom right-hand corner. I didn't actually create a slide to talk about the material of raw wood. There was raw, natural toned wood everywhere. That was something that we saw in 2020 as well, and possibly, you know, most likely even before that. It seems to be a really a standard material. Is it a trend? You know, when you use the word trend, it sounds like you're talking about something that is more limited in scope, but there are certain things that are trends that last for a longer amount of time. So the natural raw wood, you're going to see tons and tons of examples of it throughout this presentation. But I didn't create a slide just for that. I just wanted to point out that it is still very much in fashion. As is tile and brick. Also, this slide that's up right now has corrugated material. We at Classic are very into the green and eco-friendly materials. So even in 2014, when we first went to EuroShop, I remember seeing some really cool cardboard and corrugated structures. And I feel like that has really just expanded as the years have gone on. And there's more and more examples. So you see corrugated material being used as furniture. It's very sturdy. I sat in this chair, this lotus flower looking chair. It was very sturdy. You have it being used as a counter, you know, multiple ways of counters. This exhibit in the very dead center of my slide is the structure itself is actually corrugated. It's not just a piece of furniture or a decorative piece or a wall treatment. It's actually the structure of the booth is made of corrugated. So that has been around for a little while, and it's gaining popularity. It's gaining momentum. There's some fun movement. I have a few videos snuck in here, and apologies if there's a lag on your end. I know with some of the videos, they're sort of large, so they may run into some issues with internet speed. Right, and some other materials like the raw wood that I didn't feature in my materials section for this review, tile and brick patterns. Tile and brick, also very standard materials that are long lasting, stand the test of time. If you have a brick pattern or tile pattern or like a textured panel, even those are still very much popular and materials to use. Textures are fun. There's always so many different textures to see at EuroShop. These were some of my favorites. The real from angled to natural to CNC cutouts that create these really interesting patterns. the bubble texture. There's a lot of vendors that have the textured panels, and those is really amazing to see and kind of follow the trends that we will be looking at across the board. These shutters even that were in the center of the last slide, that's a textured panel. So it's very thin, lightweight. You can add it. It has that rustic feel. Okay. Now greenery. Greenery was such a big deal in 2020 that I had a whole section of just devoted to greenery. Now it's ubiquitous. It's very much here to stay. It doesn't seem like it's going anywhere anytime soon. You can have huge walls covered with greenery. You can have little sections of wall covered with greenery. It can be framed out. It can be more loose and free flowing. It can be combined with slats or shaped. You can have lighting or signage mounted on top of it, or it can be mounted into your signage. It's just it's a very much entrenched trend or just a design convention at this point to use greenery in one's booth. Another material that I'm not showing this time that I did highlight back in 2020 is curtains and textiles. Those are still, and I still saw them throughout the show. They just weren't grabbing my attention as much, so I didn't want to devote a whole slide to them. This current slide, it was really exciting to see all of the natural fiber rope, the baskets, the woven, the natural colored textures that were, this was everywhere. This was very much, this is coming. This wasn't like, oh, I just saw this in like 2 or 3 exhibits. No, it was very pervasive, using rope, using natural textures for ceiling treatments, wall treatments, lighting treatments, display treatments, everywhere. It was just very common. The panel in the center of this slide is a textured wall panel with the rope texture. So that's just another example of how the rope texture can be brought through. And then this was also a really prominent trend, was the wireframe, and it created a texture. So the wireframe on top of signage, where it creates this sort of semi-transparent screen that you're looking through. Also, the wireframe can be built into structures, columns. Here in the bottom left-hand corner, you see this archway in this exhibit that is made from this wireframe. Also, chains are closely related. So there's a wall or a lighting fixture here that's made of chain, as well as the large image on the right side of the slide. This exhibit is with a company that prints on chain. So if you were to run your hand along those, they would move and they would feel very free. But they can be printed with a photo, with a pattern, with color. They're really cool. And then I remember this exhibitor from 3 years ago, actually. So in 2020, the design that they chose was much more angular. It was very angly, very sharp, which was more in fashion. That was a shape that was much more in fashion 3 years ago, 6 years ago, 9 years ago. And we're seeing a shift now to these more curved shapes, okay? Away from angles. Okay. The next section of this presentation will be about structural shapes. So again, as a designer, I have a client and they don't really have a strong branding package. They don't really have shapes maybe that feel like I can turn into an interesting experiential 3D environment. Well, this section is here to save the day because there are some really interesting structural trends going on that actually work across the board for a lot of different types of clients and brands. Okay, so going to just mention real quick while I'm on this slide, the bottom right-hand corner, this is what I would call a peak structure, right? Looks sort of like a house, like a little roof on a house. That was extremely prevalent in the 2020 EuroShop. And there were, I want to say, like between 5 and 10 exhibits that had that type of structure here in 2023. So it almost feels like one of those things that got a little bit maybe overdone and kind of people are backing off. But at the same time, where it was used, it was very much in keeping with the client's branding and message and the products or services that they offered. So it was well done and it made sense for those specific clients. But I'm not going to have a slide devoted to the peaked roofs these times. So in case you were hoping for that, it's not meant to be this time around. Another of the shapes that I pointed out in 2020 that is still going very, very, very strong is this pill shape or the Roman arch. So it can be just an arch that creates an opening like a door, or it can be a full pill shape, you know, that is mirror image on the bottom. Almost always these shapes are in a vertical format, but I do have one image you can see here at the bottom middle of this slide that has them in a horizontal format, which is clearly, you know, because that's how their logo is. That's the way their brand is designed. So in this case, you know, beautiful. I think that's the perfect application. Do it horizontal. It's not like everybody else. And that was a smart choice. But in general, if you're working with and you are thinking of how to utilize this trend and these types of design shapes, the tall, sort of very dramatic arch is, it was quite pervasive throughout EuroShop's halls. So the next slide is going to be about cube structures, which I have been seeing at EuroShop and in the United States, you know, for many, many years now. Cubes are just a really nice, clean design, and they're not so specific that they're ever going to be weird, like, oh, why did they use a cube? No, it's so clean, it's so nice, it's easy to construct because it's got the straight lines, and it's a beautiful balanced shape. So I don't anticipate that cubes are ever going to go out of style, but you know, it's just really interesting to see the different ways that cubes are employed within the design. This green cube in the middle of the slide, that was a really interesting exhibit that went all with the cube theme, right? The cube was huge. They had this huge cube in the front of their exhibit that was sort of tilted a little bit. And then you can see here in the bottom two images right below that, that there's an interactive inside that cube. That's actually me. I went in and they had an interactive that involved these tiny little cubes that you would pick up and you had to turn and whatnot in order to work with the interact that was on the screens inside the cube. So like I said, they went all in with the cube theme. And then irregular natural shapes. I've always seen, you know, at every EuroShop I've been to, there's been these sort of natural shaped, organic type design structures or pieces of furniture, perhaps, or artwork. It's hard to build these things, right? Really natural sort of organic curves. These are not the easiest thing to build. It's not a cube. It's not a circle. So it can be a little bit difficult. This is something where we're going to get back to this shape when we get to the lighting trends section. But as of right now, there's coming some really interesting applications with rope light where it's a little easier to construct sort of these natural curve shapes. And I always think they're beautiful. I'm a big fan. If it works with your client's branding or their message or anything about them, if you can afford to build these really irregularly shaped pieces of furniture or walls, then I mean, go for it. It's always beautiful. And since it is more difficult to do, it's not as pervasive. It will be different. It will be more special per client. So this to make a slide all about trees. I think trees are they're a really interesting shape, right? Trees are beautiful, they're natural, but they can also be abstracted into beautiful shapes. So you can see some here that look like triangles, that look like circles, that look like a hexagon. You can really customize a tree idea, a tree concept to a client. I remember just randomly, I remember in 2014 when I was at my first EuroShop, I ended up sitting down next to Lee Knight in the IFAS Village, and he was describing to me the first exhibit where a tree had been brought in. Someone actually cut down a tree and brought it in and like put it in the middle of their exhibit, and it was a real tree. So I know this is not like a new thing, but it's really interesting to see the real trees, the custom trees. A lot of people are using their clients' materials to create these shapes, to create these trees. This exhibit up on the upper left-hand corner was incredible. It felt like you're walking into a huge forest. It was really well done. It just created a completely different experience once you were inside that exhibit. So trees are fun. Trees are always going to be a good way to go because, I mean, will a tree ever go out of style? I doubt it. Circles. Circles are always a good thing too. It's like a cube. It's like that constant shape that's clean, that's classic. It's never going to go out of style. I love to see how they use circles at EuroShop. It's always really interesting. Hanging pieces, graphics, archways. These are just some of the fun examples that I saw that I was able to put together for you guys today. Rebecca, I see you were asking about getting a copy of the PowerPoint. I should be able to share it. I might need to downsize it. It's quite large because all these photos and videos are quite large. But yes, I would be happy to share it with you. Okay. Moving on from circles. So a close relative of the circle is a cylinder. All right. So this year, it was really interesting. There were a lot of exhibits that utilized cylinders. Some of them appeared to be like PVC pipe, like this blue exhibit on the bottom. It was a bunch of tiny cylinders, so most likely PVC. Here on the bottom left, those white pieces were tiny little pipes. And then you can see the larger cylinders up above as hanging light structures. But if you look at the top upper right and upper left, you'll see what looks like, I don't know, are these carpet tubes? I think they might be carpet tubes. I don't know. They are a natural brown paper, very large girth circle cylinder. And especially there were several large scale exhibits where they utilized these, the ITAB exhibit and this Schwensen exhibit over here on the upper left. They really effectively use these to create an interesting texture, interesting looking exhibit. In some of the smaller ones, like I said, they use smaller profile cylinders, but it was the cylinders, I feel like, are coming on strong. This is not just oh, I saw it in 2 exhibits. No, this was in many exhibits. It's a very nice, clean shape that's going to go with tons and tons of different clients' branding. Oh, this is fun. The next slide is going to be really fun. So this, again, it's not the first time you maybe have ever seen this sort of accordion shaped wall, but it was done really, really well in several exhibits here at EuroShop. Again, I have my little textured panel of the accordion shape. It can be tiny, it can be medium, it can be a large scale. You have the ability now with some of the recycled paper to create furniture that, again, is like much more sturdy. You can sit on it. It's much more sturdy than you would even imagine, but these things just fold up and then you can like pull them apart and they have this beautiful pleated texture to them. And then you can see a couple of exhibits here. Going to play the one on the bottom left has a video. Again, apologize for any lag in the video. But what's cool about the accordion textured graphic walls is that you can have two different graphics. And from one side, you see one color scheme or one graphic, and then from the other side, you see another color scheme or another graphic. It's just really, it's fun. It's an interactive because you have to walk and interact to see what's happening in that design. But it's one of those low-tech interactives, and it's a beautiful texture, and then you can just play with the graphics so much. It just makes for a really fun texture. And I don't really recall seeing that accordion shape at EuroShop 3 years ago. I know I've seen it before in other built structures, but not a ton. But in particular, that really colorful accordion shaped structure, I think that won an award, and that was in the Designers Village. And the Designers Village at EuroShop, I always feel like, see, on this slide, there's another example. The one on the top left is from the Designers Village. So 3 years ago, the Designers Village, everyone had the peaked roof structure, and they all did like crazy different things with it. It was really cool to see. This year, all of the Designer Village exhibits were cube shaped. So very square, very linear, very cubed. And it's fun with the Designers Village. You can get a really, if you only can go one place, you only have 1 hour to spend at EuroShop. I love going to the Designer Village because this is where the exhibits are a little smaller. And so these smaller, fun design houses are putting all their creative juices into these tiny little perfect spaces. And they just do an amazing job every time. It's really cool and it's like a little cross section of the cool trends that are coming out. Stephanie, I don't remember the exact building the Designers Village was in. I think it might have been 9. If anyone else remembers, can you type it up in the chat? Kevin thinks it was 12 or 13. It was definitely in that range of 9 to 13. Okay, this slide that is up on the screen right now is about slats. Slats are another thing that seems to just have started many years ago, and it's still going strong. It's this beautiful design convention of these repetitious lines, right? So you have all these repeated lines, evenly spaced. But I think the reason why slats are still going strong after so many years is that there's so many ways to do them. They can be customized to the nth degree. They can be thin, they can be thick, they can be curved, they can be angled, they can be short, they can be tall. You know, there's literally so many ways to do it. This exhibit on the top right, the 2 pictures on the top right of this slide are actually the same exhibit. They go together, and it had these really thin slats, which had the same effect as the pleated or accordion style wall, where you could see a graphic from one side and then a different graphic from the other, or just a solid material from the other side. So it was really interesting. And, you know, light can be added into the slot and edge lighting, and they can be very organic, as you see on the bottom right. So slats are here to stay, and they're really fun to play with. You can, I feel like there's no boundaries for my designers on the call. Just, you don't have to do the, you know, same thing, same every time. You can really change up with the curvature, angles, structure, height, width, all that. Just play with it. Okay, so next, this slide is about the shape that you see in all these structures, which is it's like an app on your iPhone, right? Kind of a square, but it has the curved corners. I remember this being very popular when I came in 2014 to EuroShop, and it's a nice shape. You know, it's not too aggressive or really specific. So it kind of faded into the background, and it's maybe was just a little bit overdone for a while. But here at EuroShop in 2023, I saw a lot of really beautiful examples, and it's come back. I think it's a standard shape that's going to be around for years to come, and there's some really interesting things you can do with it. The structures on the bottom right and left are just a little bit more of a chunky arch that's been made with corners. But I would say this shape is making a comeback. Okay. Next, we are going to talk about colors and patterns. So we've talked about materials that can be used and some of the fun new materials. We've talked about structures and shapes that can be used within structure to create interesting designs. And next, we're going to talk about color and pattern. So this is more about graphic treatment, really. And I included just a couple images on this first slide, and right above the color pattern title block that have some printed leaves and then some 3D cut leaves on there. I don't have a slide later in this section that's devoted to greenery or leaves or anything like that. 3 years ago at EuroShop, the tropical theme was very heavy, which kind of goes hand in hand with the green walls, right? And this year at EuroShop, I still saw a lot of printed greenery. You know, if you can't afford to do a green wall, just do a nice, beautiful printed palm tree graphic or something, or palm leaf graphic. I feel like it was less specific to tropical. You know, I saw less parrots and lions and zebras and tropical animals combined in with the tropical leaf patterns, but greenery and leaves, again, very pervasive, probably not going anywhere as a trend anytime soon. And then let's just dig right into some of the colors and patterns. This is a fun slide, but let's just get in there. So colors and patterns. As a basic standby, you have black and white and natural wood, and any combination of those. White with natural wood, black and white together, black and white and natural wood together. Those combinations are just extremely classy. I'm going to use the word classy because we're classic exhibits and we like classy things, and classy kind of means timeless, right? So this color combination is really timeless, and it's a good backdrop for any type of product. We also, well, you'll also see a lot of times in conjunction with the black, white, and natural wood, perhaps one color added in. You know, as you see on the left-hand side of this slide, there's maybe red gets added in. That's maybe the logo mark color for that client. On the bottom left, there's some blue added in. It against the contrast of the black and white, any color is going to pop very dramatically. And then sometimes you're going to add more than one color. So you see, as it migrates to the right side of this slide, you have some really fun select color combinations not just any old color, but you know, they've got 4 or 5 colors that they've specifically chosen, and they're highlighting those. And again, against the natural wood or the white or black or neutral color, those colors really pop and make a big statement. So that's another good color scheme to work with. And then you can go all the way from the neutral that we started at to this very opposite end of the spectrum, where you've got full-on color blocking. Everything in the exhibit is pink, everything in the exhibit is green or blue or red. You know, it's a full-on color block. Or you could go the route of the very far right of this slide and just, I call this color explosion. You know, just go ahead and go for it. Just pretend like a rainbow exploded in the exhibit. Obviously, not every one of these is going to work for every client. So from the designer perspective, got to choose what works for each client. But if your client's looking for something new and they've always been super neutral, hey, maybe add a color in, maybe add a few select colors in, or be like, hey, do you really want to get exciting? Let's go with this, you know, rainbow colored light box. All right, so those are sort of the general color schemes that you can play with. And then this is what you know, it's been a few years since I've taken art history. So I'm calling this postmodern, these combinations of shapes, but I'm not sure if that's the right term. If anyone else on this call knows like what the correct term is for these combinations of shapes that are showing on this slide right now, please feel free to throw it in the chat or email me after. Post-Memphis, maybe? Yeah, I need to do my research better, right? But what I was seeing at EuroShop, and this was, again, this was a very, very pervasive one, not just in 1 or 2 exhibits, but in like many, many, many exhibits. There was this combination of sort of segmented geometric shapes. So, you know, a quarter of a circle, a half of a circle, a square, a line. Sometimes those got combined into this stair step pattern, or, you know, you're just combining like squares and circles in these different ways. And it was very playful and very fun. Just a very fun mixing of the shapes. It feels like not unrelated to shape, the square with the rounded circles. It feels not unrelated to the pill shape or the tall arch shape, right? Feels like it's related, perhaps an evolutionary take. You know, people are getting tired of the pill shape. They're moving towards these like smaller segments of curves and straight lines. I can't say for sure why it's shifting in this way, but it was really interesting and beautiful. You've got some mirrored texture here. You've got the chain again. Just really interesting ways of combining these different shapes together. Okay, the next slide is about Art Deco. So there was, okay, I think it was not as pervasive as the segmented shapes that we saw in the last slide, but Art Deco was really incorporated into a few exhibits. At least 10 that I saw were very heavily themed with the Art Deco theme, and just with you know, you can see in the bottom left-hand corner, it kind of plays into the pill shape or the arch shape really well. I'm going to play the slide on the right-hand side. This was a really cool mirrored material where the patterns, it had like, I want to say like 6 to 8 of these mirror sections throughout this one exhibit, and they all had a different Art Deco pattern that was playing on the mirror. I took multiple videos, but couldn't fit them all on this slide. And then, right, we have a color exhibit up in the left-hand corner. The Pick Slip was a really cool exhibit that actually, I believe, had its graphics designed by AI. That's what it said on one of the panels. But they have the Art Deco pattern you can see up here in the hanging sign, and it's got the color explosion going on. It's not the traditional Art Deco sort of muted colors, but it is the Art Deco pattern. So that was an interesting take. Okay, this is one of my favorite slides to talk about. So the next slide is again about graphics, and it is what I call sketchy. You know, get yourself a sketchy booth. So this was really something that we saw in multiple places throughout the EuroShop exhibit halls. Could be, for instance, the upper left-hand corner, the team at EVCA, they did sort of a cartoon strip about their company. They had their actual employees pictured in those cartoons, but everything on a clean white background with sketchy black lines, okay? And then you see that again in these other examples, all here on the left-hand side of the exhibit. I'm gonna play the video on the right. And you just watch the video because there's a big LED screen in the back that incorporates some of this sketchiness that I've been talking about. There's a very modern dancer who's dancing around the screen, and then there's swirling black sketchy lines all around her. This exhibit was really cool, actually. I mean, if you look at it, it incorporates so many things. It's got the slats, it's got the arch, it's got the it's got the shape of the table leg is that sort of segmented geometric shape. Anyway, it's got a lot going for it. I think it got second place in one of the design award categories. Okay, next we're going to just jump right into the lighting section. There were some interesting lighting styles, in particular, bendy rope lights and also fully edge lit extrusions. This light box on the right, I think it's a video I'm gonna play for you real quick, so you can see the RGB lights moving and creating this interesting light box effect. Okay. And then, okay, so for lighting, LEDs still rule the day. 3 years ago at EuroShop, it was like everywhere I looked, there was Edison bulbs, and they were LED Edison bulbs, but it was just like Edison bulb, yeah, everybody had Edison bulbs. You can still see quite a few Edison bulbs throughout the show halls, but there were also just many hanging bulbs of all kinds, frosted bulbs, colored bulbs, shaped, different shades, different shapes, LED bars, different colors. So really just hanging lights, in particular hanging lights in clusters, were very prevalent, very, very prevalent. And I love it because, with lights, it's so customizable. There's so many different designed lights out there already. The video on the bottom right, just showing the lights blinking and they change colors. And so that was kind of a cool application for their lighting scheme. See here. Okay. So hanging lights, like we discussed, very cool. Clusters of hanging lights. Everybody seemed to be on board with that trend. And additionally, basket lights. So this is kind of a combination of the hanging clusters of lights as well as the rope natural fiber trend, but basket lights everywhere. Lots and lots of basket lights. And okay, so this is back to what I referred to earlier when we were talking about the natural shapes of structures. Now we have the LED rope lights, and I remember in 2020, these little neon rope lights were coming out, and it was like, oh, this is so cool. We can create neon signs, and they're going to be so much easier to build and maintain, and they're going to be so much cheaper with the LED rope lights. So bendy, you can really create that neon look very, very well. So as that technology has evolved, what it has turned into, as far as what was shown a lot at EuroShop, is these bendy rope lights that you can walk up to, like some of the vendors who sell it had examples there. You could just walk up and touch and tie in knots, and you see how flexible it was. It just creates a much more way to do that organic, natural pattern shape that we were talking about, that can be very, very pricey if you're trying to build it out of solid materials like wood or metal. Like to create those natural shapes is just, it's kind of a technical nightmare. But you can do it now with these lights so much easier. So I like to call these spaghetti lights too, because it just looks like a big, stuck your fork in the light and turned it in. It's like a big thing of spaghetti on your fork, right? The bottom right, I believe, is a video. So let me get that one going. Hopefully you guys can see it okay on your end. Kim's asking if we can buy these lights here in the US. I imagine so. I don't know why not. But anyway, and the LEDs can be programmed. So the video down here on the right, lower right-hand corner, it was just like really cool the way they coiled it, the pattern that they came up with, and then the way it was programmed to go segment through the lights and then have the whole thing lit, whole thing go dark. It was really beautifully done. It was huge too. It was just it was an overwhelming experience to see it. Okay, I need to pull up my other PowerPoint to finish out this presentation for you guys real quick. So I'm going to start that one. All right. Oh, this works. Perfect. Okay, now we're just going to talk about interactives real quick. Interactives are still hugely popular. Clients want some interactive element within their exhibit, right? So you have everything from back up. Okay. Okay. So you have everything from, let's see if this works. Technical difficulties, apologies. Okay, so you have everything from very simple, very simple things like there's a button in the middle of the booth, go push it. And when you push the button, basically the only thing that even happened was, hang on, I need to stop sharing for 1 second, you guys. Because there's a technical problem here. It's almost done. There we go. Right. Okay, I think we're back on track. So there's the very, very simple things. There's a button in the booth. When you push the button, a cat meows and a cat shows up on the LED screen behind you. And then something as simple as like a hand crank, right? Someone comes in, they're like, oh, I want to turn this crank. That looks fun. And the bottom right-hand corner is a Oh gosh, I hope this comes through okay on your end, because Kevin did this interactive where they scanned his body and made an avatar. Well, or he's just really good at breakdancing. You decide. But the bottom right-hand corner is, yes, Pedro, that was Kevin. If you want to check out that technology, look up Doob, D-O-O-B. That's the company that helped make that happen. The bottom right-hand corner is just sort of like a little tunnel that you go through to learn about the client's product. So again, interactive, immersive. LED walls, these are very prevalent. These are very prevalent at EuroShop. There was some really fun animation going on them, and there was, you know, this double deck structure in the top right. That's the first one, the first video that's playing. Then there was the bottom right is going to be the next one. And that's just a big curved wall that wraps around the ends. It's the whole thing was animated, programmed to have a video. And then up here on the upper left side, this was just a fun, the monitors were spinning around while the animation stayed steady. And I'm just very impressed with these things because that is not the type of design work that I do. I incorporated. Okay. Can you guys still hear me? Am I here? I don't know. Okay. I think there's a problem with the presentation not working. Okay. Wait, nope, there it is. Okay, it's coming. It's coming. All right. So LEDs and fun interactives with a circle. Perfect. Okay, there was this wall here on the left that had an LED wall behind the irregular cutouts, but then look at those two circular video mounts on the sides. Really cool. Same thing as what you can see down in the bottom right-hand corner. I love round things. Circles are one of my favorite shapes. So it's just very fun to see these circular things, circular video screens. The AluVision tunnel, it's not new, but it's still cool. They've used that booth a few times. The top middle video is a circular transparent screen. We're going to see more of those in the next slide, so just hold on a second. And the top right was with projection. So those were circular panels just with projection mapped to play on the circles. I love circles, and so it's always fun to see this technology being evolved to accommodate round shapes. All right, and so now on this slide, this next one that's coming at you, this is more of those transparent screens. So these transparent screens were everywhere. Upper right-hand corner, the top portion is one of those transparent screens that's cycling through its, you know, its program. When you get up close to one of these transparent screens, what you'll see is there in the top middle picture, you can really see through it. It's very, very thin. So they don't take up a huge space like the traditional LED walls do. There's a cool sort of transparency to them. You can have pretty nice resolution graphics and text if it's big enough. You don't want to do really small text because it will look pixeled. It won't turn out very good. But there was just a lot of these transparent LED screens throughout EuroShop. It was very pervasive already. So I think this is going to be a technology we're going to be seeing and using a lot coming up this year. So those were all very, very cool applications of this transparent LED screen. Okay, and I know we only have a couple minutes left. I'm just going to run you through a few outliers that I saw that were really fun. This first one, I would like to introduce you to the macaroon swing. I saw it in at least 2 exhibits, so might not be a trend yet, but I think, you know, we can make it happen if we all band together and just start putting macaroon swings in our exhibits. I like how they have rope holding the images on the left and right. Got that texture again. And then mannequins. I know you guys would be disappointed if I didn't highlight some of my favorite mannequins from EuroShop, because they are always super fun to see how creative they get with their mannequins there. Lots of fun colors and poses. And I mean, these guys on the upper right with their, you know, glowy faces, hoodie glowy face. I mean, who doesn't need one of these mannequins? It's too soon to say if this is a trend, but this crosshatch pattern kind of goes with the segmented geometric shapes that we were looking at earlier. It was cool. I saw it in a few places and I thought, yeah, that's kind of a fun texture, kind of fun pattern to use. And then exhibit as museum experience. There was several really well done exhibits with sculpture and that just felt like you were in a museum. Which I don't think is new. I think that's probably been done to a certain degree before, but it kind of goes hand in hand with the last couple slides here of what I'm calling cathedral chic, where these exhibitors decided to design their exhibits to look like basically like churches or cathedrals. And, you know, there's a few reasons you could do that. I think the bottom right-hand example was a company that actually does stained glass for churches. So, you know, different clients have different reasons for maybe wanting to go with this theme, but it was pretty cool to see the arches and the architecture that normally you would see in a church. In fact, the Formica booth was a large exhibit that was literally planned out like an old time cathedral, like a Greek cross, where it was like a crisscross floor plan. And in the center, there was a big dome, and each section was very specific, showing different products. So kind of like the museum idea, showing clients product in a very reverent and like artistic way. The church theme, hey, maybe it'll catch on. Who knows? Not sure. But I saw it in about 4 different exhibits, and I thought, yeah, maybe it's coming. Maybe it's coming. We got to be prepared. So that is the end of my slide presentation. If anyone has any questions, I'm happy to stay on for a few minutes and answer. You can ask them through the chat. I hope you enjoyed this trend review, and I hope it helps you in the coming year or years, couple years until we have our next EuroShop, to stay on top of those trends. Thanks, Stephanie. Yeah, happy to share the presentation. So just let us know. And the breakdance avatar company, I think it was called Doob, D-O-O-B. So D as in dog, O-O-B as in boy. Glad so many of you got to make it today. I wish I could have seen your faces. Thanks for coming, guys. Go ahead and send a chat if you have a question. It was really pretty interesting. As I was going through all my images for the last week, I was like noticing new things that I didn't see while I was there. So those pictures. Mark, I'm not sure what you're referring to in the time frame for the setup. Glenn. Yep, that's my job. Just bring it all back to you. Oh, the exhibit setup. So I think EuroShop has like a week or two. I think the exhibitors there get a lot of time. They don't have drayage. They can bring in their own crews. Um, so it's very different than US, right? That's why you see so many more hanging structures, so many raised floors, because the cost there is just not the same as it is here in the US for those types of features. I don't know if Kevin, you already left. Kevin knows exactly how much time they get for setup at EuroShop, but yeah, good question. What we'll be doing too, as we look to adapt those trends for Classic, is thinking about how to build them with our clients in mind, obviously, and with our systems in mind, because some of the things that they do in EuroShop maybe are heavier or have other things, specific to Europe and their standards that they have there for trade shows. But here in the US, we may need things a little bit lighter. We may need things to set up in a shorter amount of time. So we're going to be looking specifically at how to duplicate some of the trends or duplicate the spirit of the trends, but with US standards in mind and with Classic exhibits systems specifically in mind. Awesome. Well, there's still a lot of people on. So if you guys have questions, let me know. Otherwise, we're probably going to go ahead and shut down. Oh, Mel wants to remind everyone I'm doing another presentation next Tuesday talking about trends with the conduit designer from who just was at Expo West. So we'll be sort of comparing and contrasting trends. Thanks for coming, guys. It was really fun. I just love talking about this stuff. So I'm glad so many people wanted to hear about it.